Right, shall we have a go at writing these instructions all together so you can help me to think about the order that we need to follow the instructions, and remember how you did the planting. Okay, so you do have to do a bit of thinking back, a bit of remembering what you did, but think back to what you did first, next, then, and then what you did at the end to plant your plant or your seeds. Obviously, if you didn't do exactly what I did, then you need to think about the instructions for what you did. Okay, so I'm going to write some instructions for planting or sowing the seeds that I planted. So when we do instructions and we're thinking about the order of something, it's helpful to use numbers, because then we can look and think, okay, number 1, that's the first thing that we do. Number 2, that's the next thing that we do, and so on. And then you can remember which instruction you were up to and go back to it and think, right, okay, I've done number 2, now I'm going to go on to number 3. Okay, does that make sense? So we're going to start with a 1. And what was the first thing that I did? So imagine I've already got everything I need. I've got all of the equipment, the pots, the seeds, the water, it's all there. So the first thing that I actually did was, yes, I took the pot and I filled it up with soil, didn't I? I filled that pot up with soil. Not quite to the top, but I filled it up. So we're going to have a go and we're going to write, first, put some soil in the pot, but not to the top. So first, so we're using that word so that the person reading the instructions knows this is what they do first. So first, remember, use your phonics, think about your capital letters, your finger spaces and your full stops, like I always say, okay? So first, put some soil, there's lots of red words in here, put and some soil. Put some soil, I'm just checking, into the pot. Into the pot. But not to the top. The reason why we're writing that part, but not to the top, is because that's important, isn't it? Because if we put the soil all the way to the top, then sprinkle the seeds, we wouldn't be able to do an instruction further on. So we need to think about writing the things that we know are important to follow in those instructions to make sure it all happens correctly. So number 2, so the next thing we did. So I know that I put the soil in the pot, not to the top, and the next thing I did was, yes, I sprinkled the seeds on to the soil. So I'm going to put next, sprinkle the seeds on top of the soil. Sprinkle the seeds on top of the soil. So I'm going to use that word next. Next, capital letter, next. Next, sprinkle, sprinkle, special friends all. Next, sprinkle the seeds. Next, sprinkle the seeds on top of the soil. On top of the soil. Full stop. So first, let's underline our important words here. First, put some soil into the pot, but not to the top. Next, sprinkle the seeds on top of the soil. Okay, number 3. This is what we did next. So, what did we do after that? Yes, we then put a little bit of soil on top of the seeds. So then put a little bit of soil on top of the seeds. So we're saying first, next, then, okay? Capital, then, then put a little bit of soil on top of the seeds. Full stop. Okay, so that, do you remember why we put a little bit on top? Yeah, to protect the seeds from being eaten by the birds and sometimes to be washed away by the rain if there's a heavy rain. But remember, we did talk about greenhouses and cloches to protect them as well. So then put a little bit of soil on top of the seeds. Okay, number 4. We might run out of room, so all I'll do is I'll carry on the little whiteboard, I think, if we run out of room. So number 4, so we've got 1, 2, 3, and this is the 4th step in my instructions so that the person reading them knows what to do in this order. So after we put the soil on top, what did we do next? Yeah, you're right, we did. We had to put that water on the seeds. We had to water the seeds because they need water, don't they? So we're going to put after that, water the seeds. After that, water the seeds. Okay, so after you've sprinkled the soil on top of the seeds, water them. So after that, water the seeds. And don't forget to keep saying those sentences back to yourself until they stick in your head, and then you write them down, which I haven't been modelling much. I haven't been doing that much, but you know to do that anyway, because you do that all the time. So after that, water the seeds. After that, water the seeds. So I know what I'm going to write. So after is a red word. It's quite tricky to sound out. The beginning sound it should be an R sound, but it's not. It's just an A. Don't forget that capital letter. After that, water. That's also a funny word to spell. Water. Sounds like it should have an or sound in it, but it's not. It's just a tricky word. We have to learn how it's spelled. It's a W-A-T. It looks like it should make a wat sound, water, but it's not. It makes an or sound. So after that, water the seeds. If you wanted to, full stop, you could put more detail than me. If you wanted to, you could say after that, water the seeds a little bit, or not too much. After that, water the seeds, but not too much. Yeah, just to give a little bit more detail and instruction. You're more than welcome to add a bit more detail. But I'm keeping it simple because sometimes simple instructions are the best to follow, the easiest to follow. So we got to number 4, and I think that there's one more step, because we're not just going to water the seeds and then just go, all right, see you later, and just disappear, are we? What we're going to do with those seeds once we've watered them. Can you remember what we said? Yeah, we're going to put them in the sun or somewhere that's warm and sunny as much of the time as possible, so that they can grow, so that you know that they need the soil, they need the water, they need the sun, and they need the air. So this is the sun part that they need, okay? So imagine that this carries on to 5. So number 5, so this is the last step in the instructions. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we can start this one with lastly, or finally, or at the end. Okay, so you can choose any of those words that mean this is to tell the person reading the instructions this is the last step and they're nearly finished. So I'm going to put lastly. Lastly, put the seeds in the sunshine. Okay, that's what I'm going to write. Lastly, put the seeds in the sunshine. Okay, is that right? Does that make sense? Excellent. So lastly, last, that's also a funny word. It's got another A that makes an R sound, a bit like after. Lastly, that Y, making an E sound. Lastly, put, or you could, what else could you say? Instead of put, you could say move the seeds into the sunshine. Okay, I'm going to use put the seeds. Lastly, put the seeds in the sunshine. This is split sound I. Lastly, put the seeds in the sunshine. Full stop. Okay, so you can watch this again and you can think about what you did and how you planted your plant or how you sowed your seeds, and do it specifically for what you did, reception, okay? But thank you for helping me write this, and I hope this helped you to think about. Oh, Miss Rasha didn't underline that last word, lastly. Okay, so all these words I would really like you to try hard to use in your instructions, okay? First, next, then, after, and lastly, finally, at the end, blah, 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 do this. All right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you remember why we put those numbers? Yeah, so that we can follow them in the right order for the instructions. So off you go and have a go.